From analog
Hi, Jim. You've great signal up here. You're 5.9 plus.
to digital.
We are everywhere you want to be. This is the CQ Blind Hams Podcast. Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CQ Blind Hams Podcast. Hopefully informative, hopefully useful, maybe neither, maybe both. I'm Patrick. My call sign is KE4DYI, and today I want to spend the next 28 minutes and 22 seconds talking about the Node Remote app for controlling AllStar nodes. This is an application for iOS, and it's also...
But I don't have iOS. Yeah, me either. I just have an Android phone.
Yes, it's also in the Play Store, but I don't have Android, so I'll be demonstrating the iOS version. So I'm going to show you how this app works, some of its limitations, and how you can get around some of those limitations. So first of all, let me say that if you have a clear node, you might not care about this app too much because anything that can be done in this app can be done in the clear node app, as far as I know, and much more. Because after all, when you buy a clear node, that's mostly what you're paying for, the app, the infrastructure, and the support. In this case, I don't have a clear node. In my case, I'm using a Sherry, but the radio really doesn't matter as far as the app is concerned. So I'm going to show you what happens when you first open the app and how you can make the experience a little better than it comes by default. I'll be demonstrating this with an old iPhone 6 running iOS 12.5 point something, mostly because I'm lazy and I didn't want to destroy my existing configuration on my newer device, but for the most part, anything that I show you will be pretty much the same regardless of which iOS version you're using. There are a couple of very small differences. Okay, so now I'm going to unlock the phone, pull up the Node Remote app, which I already have in my app switcher. And one thing you'll notice right away is that there are some unlabeled buttons. I'll get to what those are and how to label them.
Social folder, 9 apps, 16 new items.
So there's the home screen. Let's go to the app switcher.
App switcher. Node remote. Node. Item button.
All right. There's the Node Remote app. Let's go to the top of the screen.
Item button.
Item button. Don't know what that is. We'll find out later.
Node remote. Heading. Item button.
There's another item button.
Add button.
Add button.
Add button.
Okay. So let's get into what these item buttons are. The first one on the main screen when you're not connected to a node.
Item button.
Way up here on the top, when you double tap it, we'll do this.
Item. Back button. Information. Heading.
This brings you to the app settings screen.
App settings. Heading. Quick link buttons. Reset button. Note. Long press on quick link buttons allows editing. App information. Heading. Version 1.4. Build 1.0. Developer. Heading. Email developer. Button. Buy me a beer. Button. Buy me a beer. Button.
And that's all that's in that screen.
Back button.
So let's go back.
Back button. Item button. Node remote. Heading. Item button.
The second item button you'll find is actually macros.
Item. Back button. Edit macros. Heading.
I'll get out of this screen and I'll tell you more about how those work in a little bit.
Back button. Item button.
And now we have the add button.
Node remote. Head. Item. Add button.
And this is where you add the pertinent information for accessing your node. Before you can do this, however, you do have to make a couple of changes to your AllStar node configuration. It's a pretty simple edit. Basically what you do is, and the app explains this, you edit a file in etc asterisk, so it's etc asterisk manager.conf. So that's /etc/**manager.conf. There are two things you have to change here. The first thing is there's a line that says bind address equals 127.0.0.1. You want to change that to bind address equals 0.0.0.0.0. And the reason for this is if you leave it at 127.0.0.1, which is the default, nothing can access the manager, or AMI, that this app needs to control the node, except for things that are actually on the machine, such as supermon or allmon. Next, you need to find a stanza for the admin user. So that's left bracket, admin, right bracket. It should already be there. Under here, there should be a line that says secret equals, and it's blank by default on every AllStar node that I've seen anyway. And here you want to fill in a password. Now, if you already have supermon or allmon installed, this has already been done. In this case, you just need to look up what that password is so that you can put it into your Node Remote app. The other piece of information you need, of course, is your node's IP address. If you don't have this, or if it's not static, and this is beyond the scope of this tutorial, making those a static IP, it's going to be a little hard for you to control your node. If the IP changes and you don't know what it is, then it's not going to work so well. So now I'm going to add one of my AllStar nodes to the Node Remote app, and I'll show you how this app works. And again, some of the issues.
Empty list. Add button. Add. Cancel button. Create account. Save button. Node number.
So node number, that's pretty self-explanatory. In my case, I'm going to use 508422.
Text field. Double tap to edit. Text field is editing. Insertion point at start. 5, 0, 8, 4, 2, 2.
Okay, the next thing is the username, which is admin.
Username. Text field. Double tap to edit. Insertion point at end. A, D, M, I, N.
Okay, next is the password field.
Password. Text field. Double tap to edit. Insertion point at end.
And for this node, the password is blahface. And I can tell you that because you're not going to be seeing that anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
B, L, A, H, F, A, C, E.
And next we have
Node IP address. Port.
okay, node IP address and port. Those are the next two fields. The port I'm going to leave at its default value, which is 5038. And the IP address I'm going to fill in with the IP address of the node.
Text field. Double tap to edit. Insertion point at end. 1, 9, 2, period. 109, 1, 6, 8, period. 168, 1, period. 1, 3, 9.
Okay, there we go. So 192.168.1.139, which I happen to know is the address for that node.
Blahface. Text field. Node IP address. Port. Text field. 5038. App prerequisites.
And the app prerequisites button basically tells you how to configure your node. I'll just go ahead and read that screen.
App prerequisites. Toolbar previous button. Button. Toolbar next button. Dimmed button. Toolbar done button. Use same username / password as Allman.
So that's allman.
Bin manager. Cons must be set to 0.0.0.0.
And that's the bind address 0.0.0.0. So basically what I said before, and that's pretty much all you need to know in order to make one of these work. So let's make it work. Let's go here and save the settings.
Cancel. Create account. Save button. Item button. Node remote. Heading. Item button. Add button. 508422. 192.168.1.139 5038 button. Actions available.
Okay, so if all went well, I should be able to double tap here and we will be on a completely different screen that we haven't seen before. So let's see what happens.
Back button. Success.
All right, success. That means it logged into the node.
Back button. Node. 508422. Heading.
Okay, at the top of the screen, we have the node that you're connected to.
Node. 508422. Heading.
Next to that, you have a
Button.
button. Yeah, one of those terrible unlabeled buttons. We'll get to that in a little bit. And here you have some useful things.
Connected node. Timer. Linked nodes. 00000.
So that tells you that 00000 that it's reading would be going up if someone was actually transmitting. Right now, no one is because I'm not connected to any nodes.
0.
As said by that
0.
and that.
Node information. Not connected.
Not connected.
UK HubNet button.
So the next thing you see here are preset buttons. There are 11 of these. And by default, the first one is UK HubNet.
Win system button.
Win system.
One system button.
WAN system.
Alaska Net button.
Alaska Net.
East Coast Reflector button. Hawaiian Hub button.
Hawaii Hub.
Philadelphia Hub button.
Philadelphia.
Starlink button.
Starlink.
VK6HUB button.
VK6 Hub.
Social Hub button.
Social Hub.
UK Parrot button.
And UK Parrot. You can change any of these, and I'll be doing this because there are several nodes here that either don't work or that I don't care about. So let's demonstrate just a quick connection. I've got my THF6A patched into the recorder, my trusty THF6A, which is such a wonderful radio, except for the fact that it's really noisy on UHF for some reason. Okay. Okay, enough of that. Let's do this on VHF, so it's a little less noisy. I'm going to go back to the Alaska Net button, and the Alaska Morning Net should be on right now. So let's see if it connects.
So VK Star Philadelphia Hawaii East Coast Alaska Net One system button. Alaska Net button.
Here's the Alaska Net. Let's double tap.
Alaska Net.
Clearly and twice. Clearly, slowly, phonetically, and twice.
And there you go. It connected.
Call sign, your name, please. So, call sign.
And when the net controlling keys, you should probably hear my telemetry, which will tell you what node it's connected to, etc.
Go ahead, please.
N5ZUA connected to KE4DYI.
Comment for Lauren, this is Woody and 5XCX.
Hey, and there's a blind ham. How about that?
M0HOY connected to node 53445.
X-ray, Charlie, X-ray.
All right. Now, Let's explain a couple more things here. First, I'm going to hit the
Hawaii Social Hub. UK Parrot. Disconnect all button.
disconnect all button.
This is?
Disconnect all.
That sound is the function complete. I've heavily customized all the tones on my node, so that's just the sound that happens. I call it the something happened noise, but it's actually called funct complete. So before I get into a few more things here, I guess I should explain why you might want to use such an app. One of the great things about using Node Remote or various other things is you can connect and disconnect without making a bunch of noise. One thing I hear a lot on AllStar nodes is people keying up the radios, pressing DTMFs to disconnect in the middle of a net. It doesn't work for whatever reason, so they try it again. And it still doesn't work, so they try it again, and they try it again, and maybe after the third or fourth time, it eventually works. And you don't have to be that guy that slows up the net. You can just quietly disconnect, not make any noise. So let's get into some of these buttons that aren't labeled. Let's go all the way back up to the top.
Back button. Node. Button.
Okay, there's a button that just says button. What is this button? Well, this button is, I'm not sure what it's called, but it basically brings up the AllStar node database. So if you press it, you can search either by call sign, by frequency, or by anything really. It's pretty arbitrary. Or you can just endlessly scroll through the list of nodes that exist until you find something that looks interesting. Just double tapping this button here.
Close button. Node database. Search field. 1000 WB6XYZ FREC. Or description. Location. 2000 WB 2001 WB6NILASL Public Hub. Los Angeles, CA.
It starts all the way at the bottom and goes all the way through the end. You can just scroll and scroll and scroll to your heart's content, or you can do a search. Let's do that just for fun.
1000. Search field. Double tap to edit. Search field is editing.
Let's look up NE5V, for example.
Cap N. E. More. No. 5. More. V. Search. Search. 50,663. NE5V. Liberty Hill. TX.
Hey, there's Chris's node. Okay.
50,600. 50,600. 50. NE5V.
And when you do a
field,
search,
node
that's
database.
the only thing that shows up is the result. If you have more than one match for a call sign, all of those will show up. So let's get
Close
this
button.
button a little bit better labeled.
Back button. Node. 5 button.
So I'm focused on the button. Now let's label it. I'm going to do a 2-finger double tap and hold to bring up the item labeler.
Alert. Text field is editing. Label.
So when
Insertion
you
point
double
and start.
tap and hold, keep your fingers held down until you hear those 3 sounds and then that final noise. So let's see. Let's be lazy and use dictation here. Node database.
Inserted node database.
Perfect.
Label element. Text field. Save button. Node remote. Back button. Node. 5. Node database button.
So there's that button labeled. Now let's go all the way to the bottom. This is where things get a little bit interesting. So at the bottom, you have 4 buttons that go across.
Item button. Item but item but item but disconnect all button.
Right after the disconnect all button, you have all these item buttons. Now what are all these item buttons? Well, I don't remember what order they go in, so let's tap them and find out what they do.
Item button.
Here's the first one.
Local announcements.
Local announcements. Okay. So this does basically tell you what they are when you tap them, but not until you see that.
Rows 1 to 202. Local ident.
Local ident. Yeah, this must have been written by a Brit.
Local time.
Local time,
Cancel button.
and that's all you get there. So local announcements, we'll call that button local announcements.
Cancel. UK hotnet. Item button. Alert. Text field is editing. Item. Insertion point at end.
Local announcements.
Inserted local announcements.
All right.
Done.
And then press the button at the bottom right,
Node remote. Back button.
and there's the local announcements button labeled.
Item. Local announcements button.
Now what's this next item button?
Item button. Item. Alert. Text field is editing. Enter node number. Character mode. Insertion point at start.
Okay, that's direct dial, so you can type in a node number and press the button and it will dial a node number for you.
Direct dial a node.
And as it says on the top of the screen, direct dial a node.
Enter node number. Text field is edited. Connect button. Cancel button.
It's pretty self-explanatory. It does exactly what it says on the tin, so let's label that one.
Item button. Alert. Text field is editing.
Direct dial.
Label element. Text field is editing. Direct dial. Insertion. Done.
Done with that?
Done.
All right.
Node remote. Back button. Item button.
Now there's 2 more item buttons. Whoa. That's my Kenwood. Yeah, that's what happens when you have the auto power timer turned on and you don't remember it's there. Okay. Just hit the button so it doesn't do that anymore. All right. What's this item button?
Node settings. Enable local parrot.
Okay, node settings. There's some interesting stuff in here, so I'll read this screen.
Node settings. Enable local parrot. Disable local parrot. Parrot once. Local telemetry output enable. Local telemetry output disable. Local telemetry on demand. Enable linking. Disable linking. Test tone on/off. Cancel button. Cancel button.
That's all that's in there.
Node settings. Enable local parrot.
Okay, so let's try this. Enable local parrot. Let's just tap here.
Selected. Enable local parrot. Item button.
And then I'll pick up my handy-dandy microphone and say, KE4DYI testing local parrot.
KE4DYI testing local parrot.
And it seems to do exactly what it's supposed to. That's very exciting.
And it seems to do exactly what it's supposed to. That's very exciting.
All right, so there's the local parrot. You can do that once or keep it there. So here's one thing, since I've done something now, here's one thing that does kind of bug me about the app. Anytime you do anything in the node settings, it takes you back to the main screen. So I would kind of like it to stay in node settings, but it doesn't work that way.
Back button. Node. Node database. Button.
So now I'm on the main screen again. I have to go back to this button so I can label it.
Item button. Item button.
So let's do that.
Alert. Text field.
Node settings.
Label element. Text field is editing. Node settings. Insertion point dead end. Done. Node remote. Back button.
Node settings. Now the final one I believe is macros. Let's see if I'm right.
Item button. Item. Alert. Macros.
Macros, yes. So here,
No macros defined. Okay button.
there are no macros defined. And the way you define macros is actually outside of this screen entirely. So if you want to define a macro, this could be any arbitrary code, the same as you would dial on a radio. So let's say you wanted to see what nodes you're connected to, or you want to change from monitor to transceive, or maybe you have some arbitrary piece of code from a script that you want to run that you have attached to a macro. Well, you can assign all of those, give them names, and all that other stuff here. Well, you can call them up here. Where you actually assign them is somewhere else. So let's just add a macro here, just a quick basic one to show you how that works.
Back button.
So to add a macro, I'm going to back out of this screen entirely because for some reason you have to back out of your node to create a macro.
Back button. Error.
And
50842.
sometimes it just says error for no good reason. Don't worry about that. It didn't really break anything.
Note item button.
Okay, so now we're back at these two unlabeled item buttons that we saw at the first. So
Item. Back button.
this first one here
Information. Heading. Back button.
is just app settings.
Item button.
So let's label that one.
Alert. Text field is editing. Item. Insertion point dead end.
That's the one that's at the top of the screen. Settings.
Inserted settings. Done. Done. Node remote. Settings. Button. Setting. Node remote. Heading. Item. Button.
And this next one is where you define macros
Item. Back button. Edit macros. Heading.
or edit macros.
Back button.
So I'll just call this edit macros.
Settings. Button. Node item. Button. Alert. Text field is editing. Item.
Edit macros.
Inserted edit macros. Done.
There we go.
Done. Node remote. Settings. Node remote. Heading. Edit macros. Button.
Okay, so let's actually add a macro. Just one that gives you the status report of nodes that you're connected to, which would be star 70.
Edit macros. Back button. Edit macros. Heading. Each command is prefixed with RPT font node number star. Text field. Double tap to edit. Use the rotor to access misspelled words.
Okay, for some reason that is an editable text box, and I really don't know why. That's not what I want to edit. So here we have a list of macros, 1 through 10.
Macro 1.
Macro 1,
Name.
name,
Text field.
that's
Double
the
tap to
text
edit.
for the name,
Command.
and the command.
Text field. Double tap to edit.
So what I'm going to do is just star 70. Now it says here that everything is prefixed with RPT fun star. So I don't need to include the star, I just need the 70. So let's go back up here to the macro name.
Text field. Double tap to edit. Text field is editing. Insertion point at start.
Status.
Inserted status. Command. Text field.
And
tap to edit.
here I'll just put 70.
Insertion point at end. More letters. 7. 0. Return. Macro 2.
There we go. I'm not going to bother with any of the other macros for now.
Back button. Edit macros. Each command is prefixed with RPT. Back button.
Should just be able to back out of this.
Back button. Settings. Button.
Now I'll make sure it works by reconnecting to my node and issuing that macro.
Node remote. 508422192.168.
Double tap on
Success.
the node. There we go.
Item button.
Oh, sometimes
Item item. Local announcements button.
Sometimes the screen changes and all my nice little labels don't work anymore. That's another annoying thing about this app. So let me just go back and very quickly relabel these. Okay, one thing I should mention is that sometimes these labels are inconsistent. When you do label a button, sometimes the screen changes. I haven't figured out what it is about the screen that changes, and every now and then your labels won't work. And then they will again. It's kind of strange.
Disconnect all. Item button.
So that one's not labeled anymore.
Direct dial button.
That one is.
Node settings.
That
button.
one is.
Item button.
And that one's not.
Nodes. Direct item button.
So that's kind of weird. I don't know why. Well, anyway.
Direct dial button. Node settings. Item button.
This item button here at the very bottom right is the macro button. So I'll just tap that.
Cancel button. Cancel button. User command / macros. Status.
And if I double tap on status, it should.
Selected. Status.
KE4DYI repeatedly.
And that slightly truncated audio will double tap it again.
Not connected. Item button.
Now it brought me back to the main screen, so I wanted to do that again. Now I have to go back to the macro list.
User command status. Cancel status.
And status is the only macro there, so I'll double tap it, and it should
Selected. Status.
KE4DYI repeatedly.
do that again. If I was actually connected to a node, it would tell me what node I was connected to.
Back button. Error. 508422.
Now I'm back on the list of nodes. So that is kind of annoying. You have to be sort of careful.
Success. Item button. Local announcements button.
Okay, now that I'm back on this screen, the local announcements button is labeled,
Item button. Item button.
but these other three are not. So really it's best to just remember what those buttons are. You can label them. Sometimes you can label them multiple times. When the state changes, eventually you'll get something that has things labeled more consistently than not. One thing I've noticed is if I tap the direct dial button, for example, and then go back out, well, now we have
Direct item button.
this is an item. Don't know what that is, except it's local announcements.
Direct dial button.
That's direct dial,
Node settings button.
node settings,
Item button.
and item, which happens to be macro. So generally what I do to get around that is just label it every time you see it come up, and eventually they'll all mostly work. I'm not really sure what makes that change happen. So now I'm going to show you how to change these presets to something a little more useful.
Back button. Node. Node database. Connected node. Timer.
Let's find a preset I don't care about.
Linked nodes. UK HubNet. Win system. Button. One system. Alaska Net. Button. One system. Button.
Okay, I don't care about one system, so I'm going to double tap and hold. On a newer device, this would be a triple tap.
Alert. Text field is editing. Enter node number. Character mode. Insertion point at start.
Let's call this 50631.
50631. Text field. Enter new details for both fields. Text field is editing. 50,631. Enter button text. Text field. Double tap to edit. Insertion point at end.
Blind Hams Hub.
50,000. Text field is editing. Blind Hams Hub. OK button. Back button.
All right, I've just edited one of the preset buttons, and now theoretically, if I tap on it, I should go straight to the Blind Hams Hub.
East Coast Reflector. Alaska Net. Blind Hams Hub. Button. Blind Hams Hub.
By the way, the weird noise in my background is something in the house. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from.
Curious, I looked someplace else.
And it works, clearly.
All I'm getting is conflicting information. So, that was on the...
And now that I'm connected to a hub, I can show you what this does.
Back button. Node. Node database. But connected node. Timer. Linked nodes. 50,600. 023. 025.
So that's how long the transmitter's been going.
028.
The Blind Hams Hub connected to KE4DYI.
Yeah, there's a
Now that it's dropped, it's reset.
02.
Somebody else is talking now, it's dropped.
33.
33 is the number of nodes that are connected,
Node information.
and the node information here.
KE4DYI. Blind Hams Hub. Newark. NJ. UK HubNet. Button.
And now we have other presets. So when you tap a preset, if you're already connected to somewhere, it will disconnect you from everything first, which is a really nice touch. So let's go from here
Win system. Blind Hams Hub. Button. Alaska Net.
to the Alaska Net, and it will knock me off of Blind Hams and immediately connect me to Alaska.
Alaska Net.
Ed. Elk Grove Village. Over to you, please, from Gulf 1, Delta...
East Coast Reflector. Button.
Likewise, I can go to the East Coast Reflector.
East Coast Reflector.
So,
Yeah. Mobile 5.
blindhams.com webpage.
Blind Hams. Alaska. East Hawaiian Hub. Button. Philadelphia Hub. Button. East Alaska. Win system. Button.
Or I could go to the Win system.
Win system.
WB2JP2 connected to KE4DYI. K6JSI connected to KE4DYI.
Really smooth.
Yeah.
Except I think I had blind hams connected to the other node and it was monitoring that somehow. Whoops. So, does this work with Echolink? Honestly, I don't know. And I don't have Echolink set up on this node, so let me just frantically add another node really fast that I do have Echolink set up on, and we can learn together. Okay, I've got a new node number here.
508420.168.1.105,038 button.
This is my UHF node, which I usually leave connected to blind hams. Let's see if we can connect.
Success.
And it works. So now I'm going to switch my Kenwood over to that node, as I've done. So now let's do a direct dial and see if I can connect to the Echolink test server. Now remember, with AllStar, Echolink node numbers always start with 3, and if there are any less than 6 digits, you have to prefix them with zeros. So for example, the test server would be 9999, thus in AllStar land, it would be 3009999. So let's try that with the direct dial button.
Item button.
Which is once again no longer labeled, unfortunately.
Item, alert, text field, is editing, enter node number, character mode, insertion point at start, 3009999. Cancel, button, connect,
Welcome to the Echolink test server. This server records your transmissions and plays them back to help you adjust your transmitted and received audio. Please feel free to connect as often as you like.
This is KE4DYI saying, I don't like Echolink, on an Echolink conference server. Thank you.
KE4DYI saying, I don't like Echolink, on an Echolink conference server. Thank you.
And let's see what it says for this node,
back button,
now that I am actually connected. So that did work.
node, 508420, node database, button, connected node, timer, linked nodes, broke.
Broke. Yeah, broke is my IXRPT downstairs. That's the name of that node. That's why it says broke.
1848. 2. Node information. KA10KQ. 0.000 Pembroke, NH.
KA1OPQ apparently is the call sign associated with that.
UK HubNet, button.
So that does work.
Win system. Blind hams hub.
Let's
button.
put it back on blind hams, because that's usually where I leave it parked.
Blind hams hub.
The blind hams hub connected to KE4DYI.
And that is basically it for the Node Remote app. It's pretty simple. What it does well. It's kind of annoying that the buttons are the way they are, but to me it's more of a minor inconvenience. It's not really a showstopper, but every time you see those buttons, if you change the labels, eventually they'll all start working again. It's a little quirky, and I don't really know that this app really gets any updates. It doesn't seem like it does, but that is essentially what it is, how it works, and basically how to use it. If you want to download this app for yourself, at least on iOS, I believe the cost is $1.99 in the App Store. If you just look up Node Remote, it's the first item that comes up as, I think, AllStar Node Remote Control or something like that, but the app itself is called Node Remote. Well, that's basically it. I hope this has been at least a little bit useful for those of you who have AllStar nodes who want another way to control it other than just ETMF. And if not, well, yeah, sorry about that. This is KE4DYI saying 73.
Goodbye.
And it's time for another silly radio experiment. With this one, I'm going to record DMR audio from my Kenwood THF6A in data mode using the TYT MD380 as a transmitter, and we're going to see if it can be properly decoded later using DSD+. The Kenwood THF6A basically gives you baseband audio, no squelch, no filters, no PL, none of that stuff, when you put it in a certain mode. So I'm going to turn the radio on. Open squelch, of course, because there is no squelch. And now I'm going to transmit a little bit of audio from the analog portion of the MD380, just so you can hear what it sounds like. Unprocessed, although it is amplified a little bit. This is the TYT MD380 in analog mode, KE4DYI. Alright. Now I'm going to switch to DMR, and we'll see how that goes. This is KE4DYI sending a little bit of audio in DMR from the TYT MD380. being recorded by the Kenwood THF6A. Turn the radio off, and let's take that and see if it can be decoded in DSD+.
This is KE4DYI sending a little bit of audio in DMR from the TYD380 being recorded by the Kenwood THF6A.
Well, okay, it did work, but it didn't sound that great. That's just the nature of that decoder. But that's an analog radio used to receive DMR, and I could do that in real time as well. But, you know, I don't really think I want to.
It's all broken.